Okay, I'm clicking the go live button now. Okay, we're live, I think. uh okay, we're live. Say hello, everybody. When I say
Hello, everybody.
that's Constantine. And we also have John. Hi John.
Hello, happy to be here.
Okay. So first off, I'm gonna make sure everybody is like loaded and ready to go because I'm not. Okay, so oh, our friend from Cambodia is here. He comes like every week. It's great. Um right. So I don't know what type of news you want to do first because there's NATO news, there's there's Bakhmut news, there's Avdiivka news, and oh, there's like weapon news. Which do you think do you want to do first? Do you
Weapons.
want to do weapons first? Okay. Uh,
Yes.
John, you have the do you have the
Do you
list
have any weapons?
of the weapons that the U.S. Sent today? Do you happen to have that list?
I have it. I just need to pull it up. Okay, here we go. So there were a bunch of goodies pledged by the U.S. today. The total value worked out to be 500 million under presidential drawdown authority and 2.1 billion under USAI Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. So the PDA stuff that will be drawn directly from existing Department of Defense stocks. USAI, those items will be come directly from the manufacturer. The US government will issue contracts to those manufacturers to deliver these items to Ukraine. So do you just want me to run through the whole list?
Yeah, sure. Can you like send me the list on Twitter so I can like put the image up because I can't find it. Like I well yeah I could probably search for it, but just
Sure.
it'd be
Let
faster
me
if
DM this to you.
it'd just be faster this way. But yeah, it's nice that the U.S. is giving more stuff, especially grads, so they can carry around their man grads and do some damage that way. It's always fun carrying around 100-pound rockets. It's great. It's good exercise.
I find it very interesting that they make a shorter version of that rocket specifically for that. I,
Yeah, I
I know
don't
it's been used all over the Middle East, but I don't know where those shorter ones come from. I don't know what the actual like origin or history of where how they came about is. If they're
I don't
manufactured specifically like that, or
I don't think that the rocket is specifically for that. I think it's the unupgraded rocket. It's like the original grad, I'm pretty sure. And then like nobody uses that anymore. So because everybody uses like the better grads. I think that's the thing. I think it's just the original grad.
I think that there was one that was specifically shorter. I'd have to go back and check Cat UXO, but there was definitely a shorter one that was used for a lot of improvised launchers and technicals, especially in Syria and other parts of the Middle East and North Africa, and now Ukraine.
Yeah. Anyways, I have this list up. Um, yeah. Speaking of which, I will share my screen with you guys so you can watch me live. uh, okay. There. Okay, so here is the list of items. We have Patriots.
Munition for the Patriots. So that means the Patriot system is going to be there as well soon, probably.
Yes, soon. Very soon,
My
hopefully.
my understanding is that the Ukrainian crews that were training in Fort Sill, they have, as of a couple of days ago, they have arrived back in Poland. So I would assume they're either doing some final prep work there in Poland or they've already returned to Ukraine. So I would assume that we would probably, the Patriot systems would probably be arrive in country and be operational sometime within the next week or two.
Yeah. Okay, so ammo for the HIMARS, that's always nice. Artillery ammo, it's always nice. Mortar ammo, that is very needed. Although the 120 mortar is not as needed as the smaller mortars. The 120 mortar is the way I've heard it described is that it's more of a luxury item, whereas the like 80 or 81 or whatever it is more of the workhorse mortar. Anyways, some tank ammo, 25 millimeter ammo. That's probably really important at this point. Um, Tows, those are great. Grenade launchers and ammo. Um, Tankers, spare parts. Um, and then it's kind of these are kind of the second page is kind of more interesting. There's lots of grads. Those are obviously pretty important because Ukraine has kind of been chronically low in ammo. Um, some 81 millimeter mortars, which are fantastic. The 60 millimeter mortars are not as good, but I guess they're still a mortar. And then javelins and some other logistics stuff. A whole bunch of ammo, 23 million rounds of ammo. So, so yeah, that's a bunch of good stuff, right?
All very good. The particularly interesting thing on there was the 130 millimeter artillery shells,
Yep.
because there's not many things that use 130 millimeter.
Well, I can't think of any.
So there is the M40. What is it? The M46, which is a field gun from the early to mid 1950s. I believe Croatia donated 2 dozen or so. That's 130 millimeter. So I presume the ammunition is for those. And then there may be one or two other systems that, really old systems and not large quantities, that use 130 millimeter as well.
I honestly have never heard of a 130 howitzer, but okay. I mean, why not?
The Russians, I believe they actually have a modern one. It's like a weird, the Bear Egg, I think. I don't remember what its Grau indice is. But they made this weird 130 millimeter like coastal artillery piece that was self-propelled. And I don't know if it ever entered any serious production, but they still have, in principle, a number of systems that use 130 millimeter.
Yeah. Speaking of howitzers, I have bad news. It's unconfirmed, but our Cannon McCannon face, he appears to have gone to the firing range in the sky. Um, the crew is okay, but the Cannon McCannon face seems to be gone, which is sad. He has an M777, and yeah. But anyways, he, I couldn't go through the show without bringing up Cannon McCannon face because I know a lot of people care about him. But anyways, what else? Is there anything else about those weapons that you find interesting? When do you think Patriots will come online?
I would imagine probably the next week or two, depending on how much residual prep work needs to be done with the crews and obviously the logistics of transporting it into country. The additional munitions for Patriot is interesting. I wonder if this was planned to already supply these anyways via PDA, or if perhaps the Pentagon and the General Staff had revised upwards their estimates for how many would be initially needed, how many interceptors. I suspect, and I have no specific evidence of this, but my gut instinct is that Ukraine will probably get PAC-2 or a variant thereof, so probably either PAC-2 or GIM-T, guidance enhanced missile, T indicating tactical ballistic missile, although it's perfectly functional against aircraft, cruise missiles, etc. I suspect that is what they will get. It's possible they could get, say, PAC-3 CRI, Cost Reduction Initiative. I'm skeptical they would get PAC-3 MSE, which is the latest interceptor, largely because we're still building up our own inventory of that. We have, I want to say, around 1,200 to 1,500 PAC-3 MSEs in inventory, so which is not quite what our target level is, but we have several thousand PAC-2 and PAC-2 variants in inventory, so I suspect that is what they will end up getting. And Germany and the Netherlands, they both use PAC-2, I believe GMT specifically, so that would make sense to kind of unify it logistically with the interceptors that they would be providing.
Makes sense. The MSC is what is it? I can't remember what the acronym is. There's so many acronyms, I always forget what they are.
Shockingly, I don't remember what it is either. It is missile segment enhancement. So
okay.
yeah, the whole thing was to mainly increase the range and the velocity and the maneuverability of the interceptor. Really the big advantage that PAC-3 offered against, compared to PAC-2 was the fact that, on the one hand, PAC-3 is a kinetic interceptor, meaning rather than having an explosive warhead that's proximity fused on it, it instead has no warhead, although I think on later ones added a small, like 25 kilogram warhead. But it achieves its destructive effect on target by its own kinetic energy, by directly impacting the target. That overcomes some issues, especially with ballistic missile defense, which is what Patriot's really optimized for, of where you can destroy a ballistic missile, but because the whole thing's already on a ballistic trajectory, if you don't destroy the warhead like directly, the warhead will still continue along basically the same ballistic trajectory and still impact in the general target vicinity. There's also issues just due to the magnitude of the relative velocities involved. That, for example, if your fusing delay is too long on a conventional warhead, the interceptor will damage the rear of the missile, but not the front where the warhead is. And PAC-3 also adds like a bunch of thrusters at the top or towards the fore of the missile. So it can actually reliably intercept highly maneuvering ballistic missiles like, say, Iskander-M, Kinjal, etc.
The people are asking about cluster munitions. Do you think there's going to be any cluster munitions involved in this package?
Not as of yet. So the whole issue at this point is, as it currently stands per U.S. federal law, there is currently language every year this language gets inserted into the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which provides annual funding for the U.S. Department of Defense and associated agencies. Every year, a clause is inserted into that legislation, including this year's, that prohibits the United States from exporting cluster munitions or the underlying technology for cluster munitions, or authorizing the third-party re-export of cluster munitions with a dud rate greater than 1%. The issue is the cluster munitions that would be relevant that Ukraine requires, so DPICM, dual-purpose improved cluster munitions, from say 155 millimeter shells, 105 millimeter shells, or DPICM mortar rounds, 120 millimeter, for example, or even M26 MLRS for the M270 MLRS and M142 HIMARS. All of those systems, the dud rate is well over 5%. So per U.S. law, we can't legally export them to Ukraine. That being said, President Biden, he does have the legal authority to sign a waiver of that clause, and he can legally do that. That being said, my understanding is that the White House isn't really particularly keen on doing that at the moment. So I suspect what we're probably doing is we're probably facilitating third-party transfers of cluster munitions rather than directly providing them ourselves.
Yeah, you need to get the cluster munitions that fall off the back of a truck. I think that's how you get them into Ukraine.
I believe they actually, I want to say the general staff, they requested a bunch of our Red Eye airdropped cluster munitions. They're cluster munition warheads. They're optimized for an anti-tank role. They wanted, I believe, rather than the bombs themselves, they wanted like all 400 of the sub or 200 to 400 submunitions in those bombs to convert the actual submunitions into a standardized UAV dropped munition.
It would be interesting. I've heard tons of proposals of people dropping cluster munitions from drones, like just like a bucket full of submunitions and just dropping the buckets on people. I don't know if that would actually work, but a lot of people want to do that.
So, I mean, things like that have been done before. I want to say in the Vietnam War, we had these things. They weren't cluster munitions or submunitions. They were just literally metal darts, basically. I want to say they were called something dogs, blue dog, or they were like flechettes, basically, and lazy dog. That's what they were called. Oh. And they were these smallish, like unguided, ballistically shaped flechettes. And guys in helicopters and Hueys would literally have buckets of them and just dump them overboard when flying over enemy positions. Yeah. And I think it built up kinetic energy equivalent to that of 50 BMG on impact.
Yeah, man, that's what balloons are for. That's what the balloons are planning. That's the next step of the balloon war. All these people are afraid of the spy balloons, but it's the flechette dropping balloons to be afraid of.
I swear we are slowly regressing closer and closer to the First World War.
Zeppelins. Soon we will have Zeppelins.
It's balloons. They should have always been in fashion. It's we moved on too fast.
See, the funny thing is, I've been thinking about this. If Ukraine can get a balloon that can achieve an altitude of probably greater than 30 kilometers, say somewhere in the 30 to 35 kilometer range, and flew it over Russia, the Russians would probably have an enormously difficult time trying to intercept it, because the engagement ceiling of S-300, of S-400, of S-300V, all of them are less than 30 kilometers. And the normal rated flight ceiling of the MiG-31 is also below 30 kilometers. I want to say it's at 30 kilometers, or maybe it's 35 kilometers. So they would actually be rather hard pressed to intercept it.
Yeah. And that's the balloon war that we're coming to. Anyways, people are asking about what's it called? I always forget that stupid acronym. The GLSDBs.
Right, ground-launched small diameter bombs. I haven't heard any updates on those beyond the Russians claiming to have intercepted one, which I don't believe. Obviously, the kind of the issue there is R&D was literally just completed like a couple months ago, and I want to say in like November of last year, and the contract was issued earlier this year, I believe, under USAI. So we have to actually manufacture those. If we want to be expeditious about it, the way to do it would be to we have a bunch of M26 boosters from M26 MLRS, which were the original unguided cluster warhead equipped rockets for the M270. We have a lot of those in storage. We can take those, and then we also have a bunch of SDBs, small diameter bombs, just in Air Force inventory, and then take those. Then we'll have to manufacture the inner stage to actually integrate the two together, and then send them off. So the fact that we're having to basically do this from scratch is delaying things. The other issue is that while GLSDB is supposed to be compatible with both MLRS and HIMARS, my understanding is that the software isn't done in terms of the software modifications that would need to be made to HIMARS and MLRS. According to what's the guy that helps out Oryx, Jakub? He was mentioning, I believe he posted on Twitter a couple months ago, that according to his contacts at the DoD, that the software was finished, quote unquote, but it wasn't certified. So it should work in theory, but they haven't done all, the certification validation testing, to verify that it actually works as intended and doesn't have any bugs or defects. So that will need to be done unless they want to ship it without certifying it or doing some sort of expedited certification process. In the interim, Boeing and Saab, they have their own custom launcher that I want to say there's 2 variants of it. There's one that fits into what's basically kind of like an intermodal shipping container where the top pops off. And there's one that's literally just kind of the most bootleg thing I've ever seen. It's literally just a pod, a frame to put the pod in that gets mounted on the back of a trailer that can be towed by a truck.
Nice. We have another question for you. This is regarding why. Okay, let me find the question and just read it. Okay. Any thoughts as to why the Gimlers and PAC-3 missiles are being given through the drawdown as opposed to the security assistance?
You couldn't say that earlier? You couldn't say that before we went?
So regarding Gimlers and PAC-3, I'm a little bit skeptical that we would send PAC-3 just because they're newer. We have fewer of them in inventory. I suspect it will end up being PAC-2. As to why we would be using PDA instead of USAI for that. So we have PAC-2 and GIM production still ongoing. My understanding is that the production numbers are rather limited, though, because they're mainly for export customers at this point, because the Department of Defense has stopped procuring them for our own domestic use because we are replacing them with PAC-3 MSE in our service. So production capacity for them is probably fairly limited. So we already have several thousand in inventory, and so it doesn't really make much sense in terms of getting this there in a timely manner to do it via USAI. In terms of Gimlers, I suspect it's mainly just down to, again, getting it in country quickly to satisfy Ukraine's ammunition needs. We could do it through USAI, but there would be a longer lead time of several months until that gets delivered. I don't know at what rate Ukraine is expending Gimlers. It's obviously an integral fires capability for them. So if they're burning through them at a very significant rate, then it may not be feasible to do that through USAI. We may just have to, just do it through PDA, then backfill ourselves, just via, contracts with funding from, supplemental appropriations, that type of thing.
I just realized I was muted the whole time. Okay, so I'll start over because I didn't really say much. Okay, so speaking of Gimlers, this past week, or 2 weeks or so, Ukraine, they were watching.
I think you're still muted. I'm looking at the chat right now.
I'm not muted anymore. The chat is like 30 seconds behind. Just because the longer the delay you give the chat, the better the video quality is. So I set it to default, which is like 30 seconds.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I knew there was a delay on the video, but
yeah, it's actually a big delay. But anyways, so the Russians were moving into this forest and they felt it was safe. The Ukrainians were watching them because obviously it's pretty close to the coast. It's pretty easy to watch them with a drone. The Russians had been moving trucks and trucks and trucks into this stuff, into this forest, building a little base. They made an ammo depot. They felt very safe. There were intercepted communications about how safe they felt they were, which is kind of funny. And then this Saturday, Ukraine decided to shoot it with Gimlers, and it all exploded. So Ukraine is very proud of this this achievement of theirs of I think what really makes them happy were the intercepted communications from the Russians talking about how safe they felt while they were being spied on the whole time. But yeah, that's what happened. So that is an example of Gimlers kind of doing their job. I suppose you could have, I mean, obviously this is like really close to Ukrainian forces. I suppose you could have hit this with something else, but the Gimlers just kind of get the point across. I'm sure they may have only fired like 2 shots and taken everything out for all I know. I don't know. But yeah. I don't think there's video of this, but this has been confirmed through a lot of different sources. Have been talking about this like all week. They're very proud. I know. A lot of the more intelligence-oriented Ukrainian Telegram channels have been talking about this. But anyways.
Don't interrupt the enemy while they're making a mistake, as the saying goes.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's another strike today. I don't know if this was Gimler's. It may have actually, maybe. I'm not sure. But here, in Rivnopil, in this poultry farm, was exploded. it exploded. Apparently, the Russians were using this poultry farm as a base, and it exploded. So yeah. And in other strike news, there was a geolocated destruction of a Russian howitzer right here in, I guess this is technically Soledar. So in Soledar, a destroyed Russian howitzer. And there was a reported drone strike in Crimea, in Armyansk, right here in Crimea. And tonight, around I think 5:30 p.m. Local time, Russia dropped 2 bombs from Su-34s on this little town in Chernihiv. I'm not sure why they decided to drop bombs on a little town in Chernihiv, but they did. Knowing that they're from Su-34s and seeing how far this is from the border, it's pretty safe to say that these were those glide bombs that Russia's been using.
So there's been some interesting reporting that's come out about those glide munitions over the past couple of days. I want to say that Yuri Ignat, the spokesperson for the Ukrainian Air Force, he had made a statement today that on average the Russians were launching at least 15 to 20 glide bombs with a range of up to 70 kilometers in some cases per day. So my understanding is that the Russians right now are really working with 4 different types of glide bombs. On the one hand, at the most basic level, they have seemingly taken a Fab 500, which is their general purpose unguided 500 kilogram bomb, 1,000-pound bomb roughly for American listeners, or for anybody that uses U.S. customary. And they basically bolted a really crappy unfolding wing kit to the bottom of it. As far as I can tell, it's not guided. I've looked at some images of it. I don't see any control surfaces, any way that it can steer or perform attitude control. It looks like it may be able to do some pitch control, but that's uncertain. I didn't see anything that would look to be any kind of electronics or guidance module on it. So as far as I can tell, it literally just looks like an unguided, bomb an unguided general purpose bomb that they stuck some wings to. The glide range that they're going to be able to get on that is probably not fantastic, since again, it's not guided. They can probably, instead of being able to glide an unguided bomb, or unglided, if you will, bomb, a couple kilometers from high altitude, they may be able to, glide it, 10 to 15 kilometers from high altitude, or glide it, from that same, 5 to 6 kilometers from at a lower altitude if they loft it. The Ukrainian Air Force report also referenced specifically these munitions being launched from Su-34s and Su-35s. So I would presume that primarily refers to, yes, you have it up on screen, the JDAM-ski, which is not really a JDAM because it's seemingly unguided. But the other glide munitions they have are guided. They have the UFAB 500, which is a 500 kilogram glide bomb, and the UFAB 1500, which is a 1500 kilogram glide bomb. Both of those are purpose-built guided glide bombs. The fundamental issue that Russia has, unlike the US, is that for the most part, their general purpose bombs, their construction impedes any kind of straightforward development of a strap-on guidance or glide kit, because of the fact that basically it has a monolithic welded steel tail assembly. So the tail assembly is literally welded to the rest of the body of the bomb, meaning it can't be removed unless you take an angle grinder to it. Unlike American general purpose bombs, like say the Mark 80 series, so the Mark 82, the Mark 83, the Mark 84, and their various variants and derivatives, they all have detachable tails. So as a result of that, the whole idea of, say, JDAM or Paveway as guidance kits came about because someone had the thought, let's just take one of these bombs, take off the tail, put on a tail that has actuated control surfaces, INS GPS guidance unit, or in the case of Paveway, some electronics in that new tail assembly, and then a laser guidance module on the front, and then you're good to go. That isn't possible with most Russian general purpose bombs. There's just no straightforward way to be able to put control surfaces on there. So they're kind of up a creek without a paddle to some extent.
Do you think this right here is a control surface? Right here.
So yeah, that was the one thing that the Drive article talks about. That looks like it could be used to control pitch, but I'm not really certain that it's a possibility, though. I don't see any way to provide any control surfaces that would provide attitude control in any other axes.
Yeah, I definitely don't see any yaw, which is scary. I don't think you can. I mean, it seems tough trying to control something without yaw, but I don't know.
Yeah, and so the other one they have is I believe it's called Grom. That's a glide bomb, but it's rocket powered, so it has a boost phase where it is accelerated by a rocket motor, and then after burnout, it just behaves like a glide bomb. So whole idea is to just extend the glide range, basically by accelerating it to a greater velocity off the rail using a rocket motor.
Yeah, and those more fancy bombs, I don't think they have too many of those, and I don't think they can make too many either. They seem to be pretty limited.
Yeah, I mean, 20 per day isn't a super massive amount. I say that with a little bit of caution. I need to go pull up how many we used in Desert Storm or Iraqi Freedom to have a good point of reference. But I would imagine they're probably rate limited by microelectronics and some other components.
Yeah. So So yeah, just out of curiosity, did you see anything about this drone thing in Crimea? Because I saw very little news about it. I just saw like a bunch of Ukrainians bragging and then like nothing else.
Where was this? I don't think I have.
It's in Armyansk. It happened like really early in the morning or at night. I think it actually they a lot of the Ukrainians are saying that it was in response to what happened to Odessa, and we do have a few questions about Odessa. Um, from what I understand, um, Odessa was hit um, in three places that I know of. Um, I believe it was hit twice at this like airport, and once up here somewhere. I don't actually know where.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, my I was doing this on my laptop. My laptop crashed, so I'm on my phone now while I reboot my laptop.
Okay. But yeah, there's three strikes that I know of in Odessa. Two at the airport and one north of the airport. I don't actually know where. So that's kind of all I know about Odessa. I honestly didn't look too much into it today. I just kind of I read what I read last night, and then I kind of moved on from Odessa. Did you see anything from Odessa?
My understanding was that it was a Shahed strike, about a dozen or so of them.
Yeah, it was like
What I
17.
heard, yeah, what I heard preliminarily is that the strike began without an air raid warning being sent out beforehand. So it seems somewhere or another they may have evaded radar detection until the last possible minute via whatever means. So it seems like that's why they were able to get through, is they weren't detected until unusually late in their flight.
Yeah. So Ukraine said that they shot down 14 out of 17, I think. And I don't know, there were videos of explosions. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is true. I don't know. But I remember reading that there were three explosions, and they claimed that they didn't shoot down three, which seems pretty coincidental. Or maybe it's real. I don't know.
I mean, it sounds plausible. It might also be difficult to distinguish, particularly Shaheds that are shot down with small arms fire, if they go down and the warhead still detonates anyways. Even if they are successfully downed, it might be difficult to differentiate those from, say, ones that made it completely through.
Yeah. And do you know where these drones are being launched from? Because there are all sorts of rumors about where they're coming from. And there's also rumors that they were launching them in one place and then they moved and don't shoot them there anymore and they shoot somewhere else instead. What do you think?
So historically, prior to the the right bank of Kherson, or Kherson and the right bank of the Dnieper River, prior to liberation, they were mainly being launched from Kherson Oblast on the left bank of the river, as well as from the western part of Crimea. So just think somewhere northwest of Yevpatoria. They have, like, if you're looking at it on Google Maps, they have a bunch of like large radar and air defense installations there. It's kind of in that general, like, I want to say it's called the Taurus Peninsula, I think. I think it's somewhere in that general vicinity they were launching them. I don't know if they're still launching them from there. I would have assumed that, at least for the ones in Kherson Oblast, that they probably would have moved those elsewhere, because they would probably now be in Gimler's range where they were launching from previously. And I want to say that even before that, Ukraine had struck one of those sites and funnily killed a number of personnel from Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps who were there advising the Russians. So I would assume they're probably still launching from Crimea, because that's still relatively safe in terms of it being outside of the range of most of Ukraine's fires assets at this point. I would have assumed they would have stopped launching them from Kherson, or if they still are, they're probably launching them from really, really far back in Kherson, near the shore of the Sea of Azov.
Yeah. From what I've heard, they have like a launching point in Russia across the Sea of Azov. But I don't know if that's the only launching point. There might be another one somewhere else. And I think they also have another one up in like Kursk or something. I don't know how many launching points they have. I think they have at least two, maybe more. But I don't really know.
Yeah, it all depends. It all depends on what the actual range is. The Iranians have published numbers. I'm not necessarily sure if I believe them because they're official Iranian numbers. So they definitely have some launch sites in Russia. I'm not. Do you know when the last time they launched them from Belarus was?
I don't know if they ever launched them from Belarus.
They definitely have. They definitely have. I think.
I know they've launched them from Kursk, and I know that there was one launch in particular that I found interesting because it was so well documented that they launched from Crimea. It went to Odessa, and then flew up to Belozerkva, near Kiev, and it hit that city from the south. So that is like 300 miles. But that was a really well documented attack. It flew up the highway, which was interesting. Yeah.
What they could be doing is they could be launching them, say, somewhere in Krasnodar or and on the Russian portion of the Sea of Azov, then flying them over the Sea of Azov, and then having them come up north or just north of Crimea into Kherson, and then across the river. That's a possibility. The main difficulty for them would be just ensuring deconfliction with the Shaheds and their own ground-based air defense systems to make sure they don't accidentally shoot them down.
Which would be funny. It may happen.
I'm nearly 100% certain. I have no specific evidence of it, but I'm nearly just based upon how everything else has gone in terms of them shooting down, in terms of red on red incidents involving Russian ground-based air defenses. They've almost certainly shot down their own Shaheds at some point.
Yep. So.
Oh, and if you don't mind, to quickly circle back around to the JDAMSky and its potential attitude control, I have kindly received a DM mentioning that, or reminding me that, so stabilizers, you can do roll and pitch, and from that you can potentially kind of get yaw, although they aren't necessarily, that's not the optimal design for that.
Yeah. They could be, they could be separately controlled for sure. It's just, if you don't have yaw control, it's really easy to lose control. And then you start doing that like fishtail thing where you just kind of like gliding out of control left and right while you're trying to go in a straight line. It's not a good way to be accurate.
I mean, the design to me screams low cost, wartime design. It's something that works and is, potentially offers vague precision. So why not?
Okay, so some more news. Yesterday, in Melitopol, there was a car bomb, and I don't know if he died. Did he die? But anyways, one of the Russian collaborators, his hips weren't so good no more. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if he
did
died.
he live or die?
I don't know. I know his hips. He broke his pelvic girdle and his hips, which is not a good injury. That's definitely a life-threatening injury. I don't. That's not good, especially like from a bomb. That's like not good. But I don't.
Such sad news.
Yeah.
Well, screw around and find out.
And then there's of course other bomb news, where our buddy in St. Petersburg, um, he uh, he died of narcissism, I think. But in this little cafe, this very specific cafe in St. Petersburg. I'm sure everybody kind of knows of that by now, but just figured I'd bring it up. Yeah, that's a major long distance strike news that I have anyway. Um, getting more into military type stuff. Over the past few days, last week I talked about how Ukraine had taken out a huge amount of Russian artillery around the Kupiansk area. Um, and over the past 24 hours, Russia was pretty upset about this, and they decided to do um, two massive artillery attacks. One on Zapidna, where there were 36 um, individual artillery strikes or fire missions on Zapidna in the past 24 hours. And on Dvorichna, they got hit by 48 fire missions, which is a lot. They're pretty upset that all their artillery exploded, and now they're um, just. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that Ukraine is hiding their artillery in these farms along the river. So obviously that's where they're shooting all of their shells. And also, Kupiansk was hit by not as many artillery strikes, but a large number. I think like 5 or 10. Um, so so yeah, Russia is they're trying to re-exert their artillery dominance in the Kupiansk area, and I guess we'll see what happens next. Whether Ukraine can figure out how to take out all of the artillery again, because they killed like everything before, and then obviously Russia brought in more, and they're very angry. Uh, um, Moving on, also in the Kupiansk area, there's action towards Pershna Trefneva, which is interesting because um, Ukraine at one point they were a little bit closer. They were kind of in this forest strip and pondish area, and then they got pushed back a bit towards these farms back here. So they pushed back. I don't know, like a half kilometer, 2 kilometer, like 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, something like that. It was not that far, but far enough. So they're pushed back a bit, and now they seem to be inching closer to the town again, which is interesting. Um, Constantine, I don't know if you do you have any news from your friends in like the 92nd around Novoselivska or any of the other towns around here?
It's not much changing. They had a problem there. One of their flanks, the territorial defense unit got overwhelmed recently, unfortunately, and we lost one of the position along the rail line to the north.
Yeah, to the north. Yeah.
But then they were pushed back. Russians had to move, but it was the reason was exactly the lack of drones. It was territorial defense unit who was not properly equipped with the drones, and they simply missed the Russians who came in. It's unfortunate, tragic. They had losses. But the tree line was recaptured and new unit moved in to hold it. Hope they will do much better in the future. I think that was a bit to the north from it. I deny there is a video circulating it, but I did not spend time geolocating it. So oh yeah, this part is controlled. This part is fully controlled. Yeah,
Muted again. Just the right. I think that forest strip you're talking about was right here. I think I'm not totally sure, but
well, that means that Ukraine has a much bigger control than on your map.
yeah, I tend to make everything very conservative. But anyways, so we kind of updated that live. That was exciting. Anyways, so yeah, I don't really have much news about this kind of Kremena area. I do know that the Ukrainian position right here was hit very hard with artillery today, which is just fun, I guess. Well, it shows that they have a lot more control than I mark. Because I especially in forests, I'm very conservative. Like my map is very conservative. So but yeah, the Ukrainian position, they're hit very hard right here. So and then they also throughout the forest in general, and across the river as well in Serebranka. I can't remember what day it was. Oh yeah, it was yesterday. There was a Ukrainian howitzer was destroyed right here, which was unfortunate. I think if I remember right, it was a 105, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it just kind of shows the point that the Russians are shelling both sides of the river. It's kind of the point here. So yeah, that's oh, and also they're shelling Zarichna, and they're shelling Torska and Terny and all and Ivanivka and all of these towns. They're all getting shelled pretty much every day. So yeah, so moving on down. There's basically no news from the Siversk area, and then getting to the northern part of Bakhmut. The all this kind of northern part here is kind of status quo, not much changed. But Bodenivka, this is kind of heating up. It seems that Wagner is making a concerted effort to try to capture Bodenivka. I'm not exactly sure why. It's kind of weird to me, but they've been stacking up troops. Today they assaulted pretty heavily, and it seems that they want to break through this town. I've heard that there is fighting within the town itself at this point. It might be more accurate to say the whole town is contested. I'm not really sure, but yeah, this town in particular is under a significant threat at the moment. The getting into Bakhmut itself, Ukraine has withdrawn from this section here. I don't know how to describe this. It's kind of like the eastern part of central Bakhmut. Anyway, they withdrew from this area. I have very confusing, conflicting reports that about I don't know, like 3 hours ago, I got a text that there was fighting on this street, which I always forget the name of it. That's the name. Nezalashnosti, whatever. Anyways,
That's Independence.
yeah. So this street here, I heard like 3 hours ago that there's heavy fighting here. Separately from that, there is talk that Russia has captured all the way to here. I'll draw it on the screen. I'll draw it. What color? White. I'm going to draw in white. So separately, I've heard. No, messed up. I've heard that they have captured basically this. So these two reports are directly contradictory, in that I have one person texting me saying that there's fighting here, and then other people saying that the Russians have pushed all the way to there. So I don't know how that's possible. One of these two things is very wrong. I don't know which, so I drew the conservative way. But I figured I would verbally say both. So one of these, it's like the Schrodinger's type thing. So one of these things is true. We don't know which. I can't open the box and look myself. So yeah, I don't know what to say. But yeah, in the past few days, I'll just kind of highlight it. In the past few days, Russians have captured all of these places, which is great, I guess. But it seems that Ukraine is withdrawing to the western side of the train tracks. And then also today there was a viral video of Ukraine dropping what was it, like one of those like mine clearing things?
UR-77 meteorite mine clearing line charge.
Yeah, they dropped it right here and blew up something. I don't know. I don't really know what the target was, but they blew up something right there. And yeah, that's kind of the Bakhmut news is kind of limited. Most of the news I get is either completely contradictory or it's so general as to be almost meaningless. Like they say things like here's a direct quote, everything is bad. Direct quote. So I don't know what to say.
Do you have any news from north, like the road to Slavyansk? If you go a bit from the Bakhmut, there is this arc road that goes to Slavyansk. Do you know was there anything from there?
Not too well. Actually, I think it was kind of a long time ago at this point. It's probably like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Ukraine counterattacked through this forest and pushed the Russians back. To kind of where I have it now, and that's kind of the most news I've heard is that they kind of pushed Russia from this forest back to like this kind of ridgeline. In this little like forest strip here, this is going down, so this is a depression. This line of vegetation demarks the depression. So the same here. So anyway, so the Russians kind of control up to the edge of this depression, whereas before they held the top of the hill, which is around this forest. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really know much about this area. And that was a while ago too. It was like, I don't know, like 10, 12, 14 days ago, something like that. Recently, what day was it? The first, which was 3 days ago. I got news that Ukraine had pushed the Russians back south of Ivanivska, southwest of it. So what I did is I took the gray area that I had before and I marked it as Ukrainian controlled, and then I expanded the gray area south. They didn't really have a number for how far they had pushed the Russians. So I just kind of drew it at like about 1 kilometer. But yeah, they may have actually pushed further than this. And then again, this is kind of a hill here. So I guess we can look at it in 3D. It might make more sense. So yeah. You see that this is kind of a hill, or here, a hill, and Ukraine is kind of moving along this hill. And then there's kind of a valley here. So this canal is kind of the high point, which is kind of weird to have a canal at the high point, but you know, why not? So yeah. The forces here they're not really taking risks. They're just kind of from what I understand, just kind of just doing as much damage as they can to the Russians without like they're trying to minimize their own casualties basically. So yeah, they're kind of just pushing Russia back slowly in this area. That's what I understand. And then also around Osaryanivka, the Russians once controlled this defensive position, which you can pretty clearly see on the map. There's this big trench and this kind of like fort thing. Anyway, they controlled this whole kind of defensive position, and sometime in the past like 5 days or so, Ukraine pushed them out of this defensive position. They fell back across the canal, and as far as I know, this defensive position is currently abandoned, and Ukrainians are kind of inching towards it down these forest strips. Perhaps at some point they'll retake this position. Russians have taken and lost this position a lot of times, and there's a lot of like famous like viral videos of Russians just getting toasted in this position. I don't think they ever tell you it's this position, but if you look at it, like it's really easy to see on the map. It's like pretty unique shape. So anyway, there's a lot of videos of them getting toasted right there. It's like getting just demolished by artillery. There's like 20, 30 guys dying at a time in artillery strikes.
Is that that old water reservoir that they were getting hit with DPICM mortar rounds in?
Yes, this is that.
Oh, so this is the first video of the Israeli ones, of the Israeli DPICM,
Yep.
120 millimeters. Yeah,
And they have been kicked out of this place numerous times, and they keep coming back, but they've been kicked out again. And I guess we'll see what happens next. But yeah, yeah. And then moving south, I have no news of the New York area, or even really the northern part of Avdiivka is kind of a mystery to me. Apparently Kamyanka is still contested somehow. I don't really know how. Krasnohorivka, I don't think anything has happened. I've actually heard that they've withdrawn from Krasnohorivka, but I don't think that's actually true. So the one thing though is Verkno-Toretska. This is becoming like a significant Russian base. They've been pushing tons of men and supplies into this town here. It's kind of it's on the border. It's on the Ukrainian side of the 2014 border. So it was a border town, but anyways, the Russia is just pushing tons of guys here. They might, well, I guess that's a different town, isn't it? But anyways, they're staging here is kind of my point. They're staging and they're going to attack. Where they're going to attack is kind of a mystery. They could attack north towards New York, which I think would be kind of suicidal. They could attack Oleksandropol, which would make some sense. they could attack Novokalivnoe, which would also kind of make sense. They could attack Stepove and Berdichi and all those towns. Or they could try to attack Avdiivka. I don't know what the plan is, but they're building up tons of forces here. Ukraine is every day shelling this place, hitting it with basically everything they have. They're just trying to not let Russia build up too much. But yeah, that's kind of the northern Avdiivka news. The eastern news, really nothing has changed that I know of. This filtration complex is still contested. This town here is still contested. I don't even know what it's called. It's like unnamed town. Zenit is the same old. So now getting into the Vodiana area is where things get interesting, because I don't know how to map this. I'm going to tell you a story that I've heard. And I don't know if the story is even true, but I'm going to tell you the story. So I've heard, and there's video evidence recently that Ukraine has been heavily shelling here, right there, very, very heavily shelling it. There have been a number of videos that came out recently about the heavy shelling of just this whole area. A lot of viral videos. So now there's also rumors that Ukraine had pushed Russia back about 2 kilometers, which is interesting because this position is almost exactly 2 kilometers from their prior position, which is weird. Might be a coincidence, but anyways, getting more to the point, I've heard that the Russian position right now is something like that, and here it kind of goes like that. So like this is the current Russian position. I'm working on trying to confirm this. It's actually really difficult to confirm whether this is actually true, but kind of the point here is that Russia has lost this whole area and this whole area. As last week we watched a video of a Russian assault that kind of went like this, and we watched how it failed miserably. So yeah, it seems that this whole kind of area is now a gray area. Now, from what I understand, Ukraine tried to inch forward, maybe to like this ridge line, which is actually a pretty important position where it's kind of the high ground right here, where you can more easily shoot down on Vodiana. So it would actually be a good place to be for them to be in this kind of like ridgeline forest strip. But I've heard that they have tried to do this and they took massive casualties and had to withdraw. But there's also a video that I hope I saved correctly, because I kind of want to show it. I didn't save it, apparently. It's unfortunate. Oh no, I did save it. Okay. Here we go. This is the 53rd Brigade. So the 53rd Brigade had they're capturing these Russians here. So why do I bring up the 53rd Brigade? It's because they're the brigade here. Well, one of them anyway. There's the 36th Brigade as well, but the 53rd is a very important brigade in this area. So obviously, if they're capturing someone, they had to have moved somewhere, and that was in the snow. So it kind of matches the timeline maybe because obviously we had snow over the weekend. So um, that may have been part of when they moved forward, and then it didn't go so well. Anyway, that's kind of all I have to say about that, sort of. There's also this, which I here.
That's Aidar Battalion, right? It's not only 53rd Brigade, it was Aidar Battalion.
Yeah, yeah. There's another thing going on here. I'm trying. I have to open it in a very special way so that you might be able to hear it. I don't know if you'll actually be able to hear it. Can you hear this? No. Okay.
No, we can't.
Here, I'll play it in a way that you can hear it. Hopefully, give me a second. Can you hear this? No. I get frustrated sometimes when my plugins don't work. Okay, so I'll play it in a way that you can hear it, I think.
Ракурс. Бажаю міцного. Мадяр на зв'язку. Ходіть, вам щось покажу. Як вам ракурс? До кожного крісельця. Скучили? Так. Це наш український.
Okay, so that is the video. I don't think Constantine could hear it, but I think everybody else could hear it.
I did not hear it. Yeah. It's Donbass Arena, right?
Yes. So the point of this video is that first, Russians had claimed they killed him, and he likes telling people that he's not dead. So the other thing is that they're showing Donbass Arena, which if I can find it, it's in the middle of the city. It's right here. Okay, so is right here. So if I remember the orientation of this video, there the drone is like right here. Something like this. So you can see the video kind of like that, something like that. So he's just kind of saying, we have a drone in your city, which is, I think, is kind of badass. Anyway, I thought that was cool. So yeah,
It was cool.
so regarding Pervomaisky, I don't have any particular news. Regarding Novelska, Russians moved from just wait for this. I need you to be sitting down when you hear this, okay? They moved from right here to right there. So the really big movement. We gotta measure this one. Let's see. It's 400 meters, Constantine. They move 400 meters.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's pretty wild. And then regarding Pobieda, they were they lost their entire position in Pobieda. They've been pushed back across the field. I might actually have them too aggressive. They might really be pushed back to this tree line. I might be giving them too much credit here. And then another thing, and this kind of rendered wrong. Oh, I'll show it my other map. In the center of it rendered wrong. Oh, because I forgot to change the color. In the center of Marinka, and I should do this too. Ukraine counterattacked and crossed the main street here and pushed the Russians back. So, it's another live update because I forgot to update it before. So yeah, they pushed this way. I'm not sure how far, but I know that they crossed what's it called, Drishby Avenue. They crossed this main street and they are pushing the Russians back. So this is kind of conservatively marking them as moving a just saying this block is contested. I don't know how far they've moved. And also note that I have this like whole like quarter of the city mark as contested because I don't know how else to mark it. It's like basically just everything's contested. I don't actually I don't even really mark Ukrainian control in the city. It's just contested. So anyways, so that's the thing that happens. So yeah, that's exciting news. I have so many windows open. I'm trying to close some of them. Okay. Yeah, that's what was that, John?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I have something about some drone-based munitions that I can talk about if you like.
Yeah, go for it. Because I was just gonna say that's basically all the news I have for today. That's all the military update is done. That's it. Okay, go on.
Thank you. So I was just sent, courtesy of a friend of mine, some very interesting images from a Russian Telegram channel that allegedly depicts the debris of a shot down Ukrainian strike UAV, and it looks like I'll send you the images, Andrew. Give me 1 minute. It looks like there's some propeller fragments in the image, but more interestingly, it looks like the tail assembly of a high explosive or a heat fin stabilized round from either a 100 millimeter or a 125 millimeter shell. And if I'm looking at the tail assembly correctly, it seems the length is consistent with either 100 millimeter HEFS or heat FS round, from one of the BMPs, I think.
Send me the image.
I just posted it in Discord. Or do you want me to send it to you through Twitter?
Was that like 32, 34 centimeters across or something like that? That's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 100 millimeter HE or heat FS from a BMP3. I'm pretty sure.
That could be it. I have no way of identifying. I am not skilled enough to identify from this. This is beyond my skill. But yeah, that's definitely a fin stabilized something. Something was fin stabilized. I know that.
I wonder if if they were taking a UAV and internally mounting, or just mounting on the bottom just a thin stabilized round and just using it as like as an FPV or kamikaze UAV, for lack of a better term, or if they were actually trying to drop it on something.
I don't know. I have no idea how the fuse works. I don't.
So that's the propeller. So that's the propeller of the FPV drone.
Yeah,
Next to it.
yeah. In the bottom left on the first images, that looks like some sort of propeller.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like there's at least 3 propellers. So that kind of narrows down the type of drone it is, doesn't it? Doesn't seem like a fixed wing drone. So I don't know. That's interesting.
I need to see what one of the mass of one of these things is. 100 millimeter BK3. Let me just pull up a random number from Cat UXO, because they are a lifesaver. See if they have a weight here. Do they have a weight? Ah, damn, they don't have a mass for it. But yeah, that's a pretty hefty projectile.
Could probably find the mass, but I don't want to open that app right now because it would make my whole computer go crazy. But do they use shotguns against drones? I don't know. I don't know how well that would work. I don't know.
I mean, if you're close enough, maybe.
Who has a shotgun? Like,
I want to know who got the 3,000 shotguns that we sent in like February.
I don't know. I just by coincidence, just by accident, I learned that the gun on the BMP3 weighs 328 kilograms. It seems I thought it if I were to guess, I would have guessed heavier than that. It's a pretty light gun.
The what is it? The 2A70?
Yeah. It's not counting the 2A72 or whatever the other one is, 2A71. I don't remember.
Oh, the coax 30 millimeter.
But I feel like 300 kilograms. I feel like you could put that on like anything. Like you could put that on a car, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, you can put it on the car, but when you shoot it will have crazy 30 millimeter rounds. Have crazy recoil, and your car is gonna be jumping like. Well, you've seen the Terminator. You see the Terminator turret with 2 of those guns, how it's shaking. It's gonna be the same here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what is it? It's like a auto-loaded 100 millimeter. I'm not saying the car would be happy. I'm just saying it's lighter than I thought it would be. And it's
you're talking about the 100 millimeter one, not
Yeah.
not the second one.
Yeah. Where was the Mangrad? I have no idea where the Mangrad was. I don't know. But the Mangrad, it made me happy when I saw it. I don't know. I got to message CJ about a Mangrad and he was like, "What?" That was fun.
See, I sent him stuff about Mangrads. Well, it wasn't really a Mangrad because it was on the back of a truck, but I remember there was a post from like a TDF unit, and they had stated, this was I want to say a week or so ago, that this was posted, that the main utility of them was mainly for deception. That they were taking like basically 2-shot grad launch mounts, putting them on the back of Hiluxes and other trucks, on a technical, and that they could basically trick the Russians into thinking that they were an actual MRL battalion, when in reality it was just a bunch of Hiluxes with, two-shot Grods on the back.
I had a guy who was trained on this weapon system. This very specific weapon system. He was trained on this when he was in the army himself. He described it as only someone who hates their soldiers would have designed this thing. It was just really funny. But yeah, just imagine just lugging around these rockets. I guess you could throw them in the back of a truck, maybe, but just the original purpose of this was to literally carry it yourself, and I just can't imagine carrying around these like logs of these giant rockets. It would be awful. What a terrible job.
I wonder how well they keep in environmental conditions.
Yeah, and also when people say that these rockets are smaller and lighter, okay, the Grad rocket is 68 kilograms, and these are 48. 48 kilograms is a lot of kilograms. It's not that much smaller. It's not like it's like tiny. It's still giant and heavy. It's like, jeez, it's like carrying around like a, I don't know, like a Great Dane. Carrying around like a teenage girl or something, just everywhere you go.
That carrying that thing is a disaster. I don't really.
Anyways, it apparently they work a little bit. Yeah, they're just don't be confused. These are not for hitting the target. These are for like confusing radar. It's like into thinking that you're firing a battery when you're actually firing like two of these or whatever.
Say again, sorry?
These rockets are not for hitting things. They're for confusing the enemy. You're not like sniping people with with mangrads. It's not a thing.
I was about to say, like, the dispersion is like, what is it? It's like most of them will fall in a box, like in a rectangular area. It's like 300 meters by 150 meters, something like that. And it's probably going to be worse if there isn't an actual tube for these.
And it's not just the tube. Like, well, I mean, there is a tube, so there's a tube, but the issue is that you're not like, I don't know what the word is. You're not level in any. You're not necessarily level. You don't know if you're level or not. That's like the main issue. So you can aim exactly how you want to, but if you're not level, it's not going to work out. You're still going to miss. So that's like the real. So like in order to actually hit something, you would have to just sit there shooting and then correcting fire. But also the rockets are not accurate to begin with. So even if you correct fire, you're still probably gonna miss. So it's just it's not for hitting. This is not it's for confusing. It's for that sort of thing. It's more of like a distraction than a weapon that deals damage.
Oh, so by the way, I have some rough potential numbers. It looks like that 100 millimeter FS round, that's going to be probably around 19 to 20 kilograms. So 45 pounds ish.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, sounds about right.
Which is not light for a UAV delivered payload, to be clear.
Yeah, although it's doable though. So those do seem like small propellers. I don't know.
What, they're about 16 centimeters, 16, 17 centimeters, about 6.5 inches long.
So, I don't know. Do either of you have anything else to talk about?
I don't.
I don't have anything prepared per se, unless you want to do some questions for the audience. Do you want to talk about Finland a little bit, I guess, or?
Oh, yeah, we could talk about Finland. Yeah, they joined the club. They changed their official national animal to a bald eagle. They banished their healthcare system, and they're now required by law to eat French fries at least once a week. These are all the parts of joining NATO. They don't tell you, but they're true facts. So NATO is one of us. Finland's one of us. I mean, obviously.
I guess the big ticket item is they have a bunch of old Soviet standard kit in stock and inventory, particularly on the artillery side of things. They have, I want to say, like 470 something 122 millimeter towed howitzers, like 100 pretty heavily modified or pretty heavily modernized BMP2s, around 75 or so 122 millimeter self-propelled howitzers, like several hundred MTLBs and a bunch of other stuff. I'd be very curious if now that this happens, now that they've acceded, particularly if they're interested to getting some more NATO standardized or interoperable equipment, if they'd be willing to begin dumping some of that inventory to Ukraine.
And they have really good ammo. Everybody in Ukraine loves Finnish ammo. When you get a batch of Finnish ammo, it puts a smile on your face. They have good ammo. It's very accurate. I think it might actually be bad for the gun, but we don't like to talk about that. We're more happy with the accuracy. Yeah. So how much will they give? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. They also have a new government. Their government. One of their big things is cutting spending, and cutting spending doesn't necessarily correlate to giving away lots of money, typically. So,
I mean, yeah, a lot of it will depend on the domestic political environment there. It's not really clear. At least the last I heard, it isn't really clear what the new government will be. Obviously the current coalition, they lost their majority, so they're still going to have negotiations to form a new coalition government. So it'll probably take some time.
Yeah, that's true. But I just find it hard to believe that their primary platform of cutting spending, I think, will come through, even no matter what the ultimate negotiations and what they cut spending and how much they cut. I think that this cutting spending will show its face in their politics. So and I don't know how that relates to giving billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, but maybe it has nothing to do with it. Maybe they consider it two separate issues. I don't know.
Depending on the items, they could always amortize the cost of replacements over a period of years. That would help ease the pain of that. I mean, and we wouldn't necessarily be talking billions of billions. Their defense budget's only like $5 billion annually, and that's just as of like last year. Before that, it was, I want to say, closer to like 2.5 or 3 billion annually. So we wouldn't be talking massive amounts of money, maybe several tens of millions, maybe a few hundred millions, depending.
Yeah. So, and also, donating stuff could boost their own economy, which I think is really they want to cut spending to boost their economy, not just cut spending for the sake of it. So if they cut, if they send stuff and they can use that to, you know, s- produce more within their country and kind of boost their economy that way, maybe they would like it. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, be like a stimulus package for the defense and other associated industries, in a sense.
Oh, there was one last thing that I didn't mention. I can't remember what day this was. Maybe I have it marked somewhere. Oh, it was the first. On April 1st. The Russians tried to send a DRG um, uh, into the northern part of Kharkiv, and they were identified and destroyed. Was the phrasing? I forgot to mention that before. But anyways, so that's kind of all the news for today. So, what does Finland produce? Do you know off the top of your head what is currently in their production?
They have mainly ammunition, 155, 122, 152, small arms ammunition. They produce some small quantities of like APCs, MRAPs, that kind of thing. Not super large quantities, but they do have some production. They also do produce their own howitzers, although I'm not sure if that production line is still active, but they have produced their own artillery at least in the past, 155 specifically. A lot of their stuff, like the old stuff that they have, like the 122s, that was all bought from the Soviet Union decades ago. So yeah, they could produce some of the replacements in country. In terms of technology, for example, they exported I should say, they licensed the technology to produce their Patria wheeled APC to Poland. Poland modified that and introduced it into their service under the name Rosomak. And Finland signed off on a authorization for Poland to sell 100 of those to Ukraine. So there's some indirect action being taken there.
Okay. All right. So that's all I got. Unless someone has a question real fast. Although we have to wait like 30 seconds to hear them.
I think someone just sent me a video of the UAVs that are being used to. Jesus Christ, that's massive.
Okay.
Here, let me put the link in Discord. Thank you to the viewer of the stream that sent me that. That is much. You know who you are, and that is much appreciated.
This is a
I'm not sure if that's the same round, but it looks kind of similar.
this is it's a big boy. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember seeing them drop things with big fins. I remember that now. They were dropping it on like a BMP-3 or something. Man, like one of those shells hitting the top of like an armored vehicle, it obliterate it. It would be really bad.
It's such enormous overkill.
I mean, you'd kill most vehicles from the side, not from the top. It's just crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Yeah, I think I've seen a video from this before where they're dropping big. It was things with big fins. Now that I'm looking at that, it was really big fins because it was like the fin was like as big as a drone. It was like it really stood out. It dropped like three of them. It may have been this drone. Anyways, there was a video of the cluster munitions being used. I don't like have it on hand. I'm just gonna go to Twitter and type in Ukraine cluster munition, and we're gonna see if it pops up. But yeah, there was a video at some point of that location that I mentioned before getting hit by cluster munitions. I can't find it really quickly. But if you find a video, if you like search Twitter for cluster munitions in Ukraine, and it looks like they're shooting a big rectangle, you know it's that one place because that's where that was. Will air defense see this drone? How big does the drone need to be before it makes air defense sad or angry?
Well, Madyar was flying drones over Donetsk, watching traffic.
Yeah, he sure was. All right, so I think that's all for today. We'll be back on Thursday. I know some people think that we don't stream on Thursday, but we do. Stream on Thursday. There was one Thursday I didn't do it. But other than that, every Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah. Thank you, John, for coming, and for Constantine, and
Thank you for having us.
thank you for everybody who watched it. And yes, Russia is also using cluster munitions. They are. Anyways, right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay.